Germany wants to have renewables be 60% of the total energy usage by 2050. So that would be in the transport sector, in the heating sector, and in the electricity sector. To get there, there's still some work to be done. So as of today, 2015, there's just a little bit shy of 30% renewables in the electricity mix. By 2025, we're supposed to have 40 to 45% renewables for electricity. So what Germany has done is it has established targets for 2020, 2025, 2030, 2035 for how much renewables it should have in different parts of the energy system. And that's important because to just have a 2050 plan is almost meaningless. If you just have a 2050 plan, it's really easy for everybody, policymakers, for industry to say, yeah, we'll get there, and then leave it to somebody else to do. But if you have short-term targets on the way to getting there, then the pressure is on, and it means you can't just push it off for later. And what's really important is that you also have implementation plans to say, okay, how is it that we're going to reach a 2025 target of 40 to 45% renewables in the electricity mix? And you need to negotiate with different regions of the country and say, okay, who's going to be doing what? How much are you going to contribute to this system? Because if you don't have some planning and you leave everything to the market, then markets tend not to work that well in that way. Energy efficiency is the single most important policy response to climate change, to energy imports, to reducing the footprint of our energy use. It's the cheapest way to go about doing something good for climate, because basically it's just reducing demand, it's reducing consumption. The next step is linking energy efficiency with renewables so that you have photovoltaics on your roof, you do solar thermal water heating, and you have a really energy efficient house so that you don't even need to be buying energy from outside because you're basically producing it yourself. I think one reason Germany gets so much attention is not because it's the #1 country on renewables. There are other countries that have more renewables in their electricity mix. Norway has 100% hydropower in its electricity mix. Austria has, I don't know the exact figure, but something like 50-60% of its electricity coming from hydro. So there are other countries that have more renewables. But the reason Germany gets so much attention is that it has a large share of new renewables as opposed to the old renewables. And the new renewables are basically onshore wind, offshore wind, and various kinds of photovoltaics. And so that's where Germany is leading. It has 6 to 7% of its electricity right now from photovoltaics, and there is no other industrial country in the world that has that high of a share of photovoltaics in the electricity mix. And it's moving up to 11-12% of the electricity mix from wind, which is also a really high share from onshore and a little bit of offshore. It also has biomass. It has a fairly high share of biomass, a little bit more than in wind. A small share of hydro, about 3% of the mix. Very, very small share of geothermal, although it's also trying to expand that a little bit. But the real push is in onshore wind, offshore wind, and photovoltaics. You are so right. Germany is not the best place to do photovoltaics, but it does, and it works. On a sunny day in the summer in Germany, Germany is getting more than 50% of its electricity from PV. So there is something like 35, maybe 38 gigawatts of installed photovoltaic capacity. On an average sunny, half-sunny day, then maybe you are getting a mixture of 30% of your electricity out of solar and PV. On a bad day, when there's cloud cover and it's rainy, maybe there's some wind but no PV. On average, you are right, Germany just does not have a lot of sunshine, so there's only about 900 hours a year of sun. So it's not the best place in the world to do PV. But if you can figure out how to make PV work in a country like Germany, then it can work anywhere. And if your goal is not only to turn your own country renewables, but also to help other countries transition where they have better climatic conditions, then you can still be part of the industry game. Germany is a country with 80 million people. And in comparison, I think the United States is about 320 million. But Germany is the world's, I believe, fourth largest economy and exporter. So a relatively small population. I mean, it's big, but it's not as big as the US. It's certainly not as big as China, and it's still smaller than Japan. Those are the other big ones. It is a big exporting country. And exporting country means it is producing automobiles for other parts of the world. It's producing wind turbines for other parts of the world. It's producing machine parts. It's producing chemicals. And the question is, how can a society like that be energy efficient? Germany is doing what it's doing in part because it costs money to produce things. Material inputs, energy inputs, resource inputs. That's part of the price of a product. So if you become super energy efficient, you also have a more competitive business. So Germany has half the CO2 per capita of an American. One German has about 9 tons of carbon per capita. In the United States, it's about 17 tons of carbon per person. That difference is the difference in efficiency. So because Germany is much more energy efficient and resource efficient, even though the cost of living is higher and taxes are higher in Germany, products are produced more efficiently, and that helps keep the German economy competitive. And on top of that, if you're going to do an energy transformation, you're going to move away from coal, you're going to move away from oil, you got to do something, right? So what does that mean? It means you have to come up with really new creative ideas. You need to think about, how am I going to turn my community into a smart grid community so that my washing machine is storing wind-produced electricity for the next time I use the washing machine, or that my refrigerator can deep freeze on days when there's a lot of solar production. That you start thinking about, how do we make machines smarter? How do we make them more efficient? How do we design our cities so that we don't have to use cars so much? How do we build buildings so that you actually don't even need to heat, because the building is so well designed that you don't need to heat from outside? That's fun. That's exciting. That's a challenge for all of these young students to be thinking about. And I think that's also what Germany is thinking, that if you can do an energy transition, you also have the possibility to be cutting edge on just all kinds of issues. An energy transition away from fossil fuels and nuclear is expensive. It means that you need new facilities, you need wind parks, you need photovoltaics, you need new grid infrastructure. It will be expensive. And anybody who tells you that it won't be is not telling you the truth. What you really need to realize is that a future for our children requires an investment now. You invest in renewable energy in order to make a better future for your children. And yes, it's going to cost, but it's a good investment.